List comprehension versus lambda plus filter. I have a list that I want to filter by an attribute of the items. Which of the following is preferred? Readability, performance, other reasons.
It is strange how much beauty varies for different people. I find the list comprehension much clearer than filter plus lambda, but use whichever you find easier. There are two things that may slow down your use of filter. The first is the function call overhead. As soon as you use a Python function, whether created by def or lambda, it is likely that filter will be slower than the list comprehension. It almost certainly is not enough to matter, and you shouldn't think much about performance until you've timed your code and found it to be a bottleneck, but the difference will be there. The other overhead that might apply is that the lambda is being forced to access a scoped variable, value. That is slower than accessing a local variable, and in Python 2.x the list comprehension only accesses local variables. If you are using Python 3.x the list comprehension runs in a separate function, so it will also be accessing value through a closure, and this difference won't apply. The other option to consider is to use a generator instead of a list comprehension. Then in your main code, which is where readability really matters, you've replaced both list comprehension and filter with a hopefully meaningful function name.
This is a somewhat religious issue in Python. Even though Guido considered removing map, filter and reduce from Python 3, there was enough of a backlash that in the end only reduce was moved from built-ins to functools.reduce. Personally, I find list comprehensions easier to read. It is more explicit what is happening from the expression I for I in list if I dot attribute equals value, as all the behavior is on the surface, not inside the filter function. I would not worry too much about the performance difference between the two approaches, as it is marginal. I would really only optimize this if it proved to be the bottleneck in your application, which is unlikely. Also, since the BDFL wanted filter gone from the language, then surely that automatically makes list comprehensions more Pythonic. Smile.
Since any speed difference is bound to be minuscule, whether to use filters or list comprehensions comes down to a matter of taste. In general, I'm inclined to use comprehensions, which seems to agree with most other answers here, but there is one case where I prefer filter. A very frequent use case is pulling out the values of some iterable x subject to a predicate px. But sometimes you want to apply some function to the values first. As a specific example, consider. I think this looks slightly better than using filter. But now consider. In this case, we want to filter against the post-computed value. Besides the issue of computing the cube twice, imagine a more expensive calculation. There is the issue of writing the expression twice, violating the dry aesthetic. In this case, I'd be apt to use.
Although filter may be the faster way, the Pythonic way would be not to care about such things unless performance is absolutely critical, in which case you wouldn't be using Python.
Please